Dr. Richard Wolff, it's a pleasure speaking to you. Dr. Wolff, I am interested in a particular piece of economics that always concerns me. I have this theory, or not a theory, I always say a dollar knows not from where it is spent. That's what I always say. Right. Now, why is it that classical economists tend to believe that if we give monies first to the government through taxes and that the government is going to have to spend it anyway, that somehow it is less efficient for the economy at large?
This is only a question of ideology. It really has nothing to do with economics. The actual reality is everything depends, when you spend a dollar, on what the person that you spend the dollar on does with the dollar. If that person turns around and uses it for a productive investment, then the society can benefit. If the person you spend the dollar on doesn't, then the society doesn't benefit. Therefore, if you give it to the government and they use it, for example, to improve schooling for children, it's a very productive event. If you pay the money instead to a private business that hoards the money in a savings account, it's not a positive event. It has really nothing to do with public or private, government or private. It's a question of what the recipient of your dollar does with that money. As that dollar moves around, is it stimulating production? Is it giving people jobs or not? The government can do that, and it often has, or the private sector can do it. But without knowing exactly which entity is going to get the dollar, you don't know what the consequences are. For someone to say giving it to the government is somehow inappropriate or ineffective makes no sense. It's pure kind of an ideological effort to badmouth the government, but in fact, it doesn't make any economic sense.
Now, why is it that we don't get other economists, including liberal economists, to state that? In fact, when I asked that question, that is the answer I expected out of you, given all the other things that I've read that you've done. Now, why is it that most, even liberal economists, buy into that false concept that a dollar to the government is somehow less efficient?
Because they've grown up in a society where that is virtually a religious commitment. In this country, for many years now, it has been believed that giving money to the government is somehow a waste of money, an ineffective thing to do, a drag on the larger society, whereas giving it to the private sector is a magical road to successful outcomes. Look, the reason for that is history. The last time we had an economic system that broke down in this country was the 1930s. We had a terrible collapse. And the country, the whole American country, blamed it on the private capitalists who brought us into that mess. And we turned as a society to the government, to Franklin Roosevelt and the Social Security system, the New Deal, to help us out. And it worked. The government got us out. That really upset the business community because they were afraid that people would draw the conclusion, wow, the private sector gets you into a depression and the government gets you out. In order to make sure that the people didn't get that idea, which would be a logical inference of what happened, they began a program which can't be called anything other than relentless propaganda. Giving money to the government is bad, giving money to the private sector is good. Since most people don't like to pay taxes anyway, this had a receptive audience. Oh good, I don't want to have to pay taxes. Until people realize that if you don't pay taxes, the roads aren't maintained, the children don't get an education in school, the hospitals can't take care of you, because in fact, money given to governments is used for the well-being of the society as a whole. Sometimes governments don't do that efficiently, but sometimes private companies don't do what's efficient either. That's really, again, nothing to do with public versus private, but has to do with who the people are and what the circumstances are when you spend money on public or private. So it's really only a question of the ideology. For 60 years now, we've been in a get rid of the New Deal frame of mind, downplaying and bad-mouthing the government as if it were necessarily bad or inefficient. It really makes no sense and has no basis in any kind of serious looking at what happens. For every example of giving money to the government that ended up not working out well, I can give you a parallel example of giving money to a private company where the same thing happened. So it's just childish to pretend that the badness is all on one side and the goodness is all on the other. It's not serious, and it's shameful if educated people talk like that.
Dr. Wolff, excellent, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your interest.